Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Mangino, and I am the behavior consultant that works with Stephanie Karp. The purpose of this presentation is to go over some general information about behavior and behavior supports. And then also we will get into specifics that are related to Stephanie's updated and revised behavior support strategies. Okay. Like I said, our objectives today, we're going to review what behavior is so that we can better recognize and understand it. And we're going to look at defining and understanding what positive behavior supports look like. And then again, give an overview of the components and strategies for Stephanie's behavior plan. So, what is behavior? A lot of times in this field, I think that we tend to use the word behavior most often when we are talking about things that we don't want to see, that problematic behavior, so escalated behavior, anything that's challenging. But in reality, behavior is anything that a person does that we can see or hear. We're all engaging in behavior all day long. All of us are. Um, when we are working with clients in this field, oftentimes we're looking to specifically target that repeated behavior that we consider challenging. It's behavior that interferes with learning, with tasks or activities, or with our social interactions, our engagement with others. It could potentially cause damage or significant disruption to someone or to others, or possibly even to the environment. So we are going to do this in a positive way by helping individuals to learn new positive ways to respond to the things that are going on in their life, to stressors, new skills that we're going to teach so that they can have those same wants and needs met. And another thing is we want to make sure that, again, we look specifically at targeting these challenging behaviors because they are meeting this criteria, not just because it's a behavior that we don't agree with, that we find bothersome, or if it's not affecting the environment, if it's not putting people at risk, if it's not affecting the person's ability to follow through with tasks and activities or learning new things or their social relationships, then that's something that we consider as not socially significant. We want to only look at those things that are socially significant and try to help that person to learn new skills so that they can have those needs and wants met in a way that is more adaptive. Okay. So positive behavior supports, again, an approach for changing behavior with the primary goal of improving that individual's overall quality of life. And guess what the side effect is going to be? When that person's quality of life improves, your workday is going to improve too. You're going to see less challenges. You're going to be less stressed at work. Things are going to go swimmingly. That's our goal, right? So we want to be able to help the folks that we're working with to have the best possible life that they can have. And I know you guys are all fantastic at what you do. And this, hopefully, the information that we go over here can just help you think about things in a little bit of a different way so that you can use the skills that we're talking about and make little changes here and there so that we can, again, help Stephanie in this case to improve her overall quality of life. When we look at challenging behavior, we want to figure out the function of it. And we're teaching new skills to replace that challenging behavior. Now, function is just a fancy ABA, applied behavior analysis, way to talk about the why. Why is a person doing the things that they are doing? Why are they engaging in the behavior that they are engaging in? And we have to make sure that we understand that behavior is simply a form of communication across the board. Someone is trying to communicate something to us. So, one of the biggest things that I am going to ask of you guys is to change up your thinking. A lot of times we tend to get stuck in this line of thinking that focuses on if someone's engaging in escalated, challenging behavior, we want to be able to reason with them, to explain to them why they're doing what they're doing is not okay, and try to talk about what you should be doing instead. And then also, what are the consequences? And when I say consequences, I'm typically talking about what are the repercussions for the actions that you've been engaging in. However, this isn't going to bring about long-term change for anyone. So this is where I'm challenging you guys to change up the way that you're thinking a little bit, and keep an open mind and try some new things that maybe you have or maybe you haven't done before. Okay. Old approaches and new approaches, the new positive behavior supports. In the old approach, we just use general interventions for all behavioral challenges. We just threw everything but the kitchen sink at folks. With positive behavior supports, we're really trying to look at individualizing the interventions that we use so that they match that person's target behavior functions. Again, the why behind what they're doing. Instead of in the old approach having interventions that are reactive, we want to focus on proactive. So instead of always feeling like we're responding to those problematic behaviors that are occurring, we want to do whatever we can to prevent those things from happening in the first place. And so we'll talk more specifically about what we can do for Stephanie to help with that. Focusing on reducing behavior. We can't just reduce behavior because we want it to stop. It's never going to work that way. I promise you that. Um, we want to focus on teaching new skills. When we teach folks a different way to go about having their needs and their wants met, you'll start to see that those challenging behaviors will naturally reduce. Okay. There are no quick fixes. It's just not going to happen. Our interventions are unfortunately long term. We're working with adults and they have a lifelong history of these learned behaviors. A lot of them learned at a very young age that this is what I do to have my needs and my wants met, and it's a habit that is formed. It doesn't mean we can't change it. It just means it's going to take some time and consistency and effort. Okay. So again, trying to talk a little bit more about function, again, the why behind what we're doing. So it falls into two main categories. The first one being escape or avoidance. So the behavior we engage in, we do so because we want to maybe escape some tasks or activities that we don't like, we don't want to do. Maybe we're doing something to escape pain that we're experiencing, or we might be escaping or avoiding interactions with others. Think about if your phone rings and you're busy or you just don't feel like talking to that person, so you put it on silence and you send them straight to voicemail, right? So that's your behavior, is sending that person to voicemail because you're escaping having that phone conversation. We might, when we're asked to clean our rooms, we might go and hide in the bathroom and say, "Oh, I've got to go to the bathroom, busy, sorry." And we do that so we're thinking, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to get out of cleaning my room. I'm just going to go hide in the bathroom for a while," and then they'll forget about it. All right. So the other aspect of this is to obtain things, right? And this can be gaining access to food, gaining access to attention, and that could be attention of one person. It could be attention of many people. And obtaining activities, obtaining preferred items. And sometimes it's internal stimulation. So these are things that we can't necessarily see. We might see the behavior itself, but trying to get at the why behind it can be a little bit challenging because it's happening on the inside. Um, so think about all those self-stimulatory behaviors that you might see individuals engaging in, and it doesn't matter if it's someone who's autistic, it doesn't matter if it's someone with intellectual disability or someone that's just neurotypical. We all engage in self-stimulatory behaviors to kind of regulate ourselves, and we do this every day. When we talk about obtaining attention, I encourage everyone. I know that it's common to talk about attention seeking, right? Someone's attention seeking, but I encourage you to think about it more as a connection. Unfortunately, the word attention seeking seems to have taken on this negative connotation, and it kind of keeps us from seeing things for what they really are and that human social aspect of it. We are social beings. So to seek out attention is a normal human response, right? It's a normal human behavior. And so we're all just looking for someone to connect with us in a meaningful way. So please try to think about when someone's function of their behavior, why they're doing it is attention. It's because they're needing a connection. They're needing some human interaction. Okay. And a side note, it seems kind of odd to us, but when you're thirsty for that connection, you'll take whatever you can get. So the attention might not be positive attention. It might not be fun and happy and cheerful. It might come in the form of reprimands. But again, if you're starved for it, you'll take whatever you can get. Okay, so talking a little bit more about behaviors communication. So just knowing that this serves as a way to communicate when we don't have the language skills to communicate. This could be someone who doesn't really have vocal verbal language skills, or it could be individuals sometimes who can sit and have a conversation with you, but when it comes down to the real meat of things, they struggle with expressing themselves. Okay. This might be used instead of language by individuals with limited social skills or anxiety. So just kind of like I mentioned, I might not have the exact social skills to get my point across in a way that is considered socially appropriate. My anxiety might be preventing me from being able to do that. The individual may have learned challenging behavior is effective. So, again, going back to, I have learned that this is the quickest and easiest route to take to get those needs met. So, examples of behaviorist communication, the person might be trying to say, nope, I don't want to do that, or stop, I don't like this interaction. They might be saying, this is too much for me right now, I need a break, or this task is too complicated, I need some help. They might be saying, I want something, right? I want that candy bar. I want you to hang out with me. I want to go shopping, those kind of things. I want something different for dinner. And then the connection or attention part of it is spend time with me, just hang out with me, be with me. Again, we are social beings, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so setting events, quality of life. So we are more likely to engage in challenging behaviors when we feel that everything we're doing all day long is difficult. And it doesn't matter what someone else thinks about the level of difficulty, it's about me, right? If I feel it's difficult, nothing changes that. It's my personal experience, it's my feeling. Okay. So I might see something as super easy, but you might feel differently about that task or that activity. So we have to keep in mind that we can't change the way that someone perceives something. That's their reality. So we kind of have to go off of what their reality is. You are more likely to engage in challenging behaviors when you dislike what you do all day. And so, for a lot of our folks, they might be bored. They might not like the task that's being presented or the activity that's being presented. So, if they're just generally not into it, you might see more challenging behaviors occur. Again, kind of going off of that, if you don't have anything to do all day, if you're bored, you might start engaging in more challenging behaviors because you're not busy doing other things. And then the last part is we are caregivers and we are tasked with a lot, right? You guys take care of a lot of responsibility all day long during your shifts. We try to run a tight ship. We try to accomplish all those tasks. But what ends up happening is we are giving all of these directives to folks all day long, right? We're telling them what time they need to take their meds. We're telling them what time they need to take a shower. We're telling them what time they have to get up. All of that stuff. Think about who tells you that in your own house. You make a choice, right? You make a decision. You have control. There are, of course, natural consequences if you decide to not follow through with your responsibilities. But you generally don't have somebody who is saying, get up, time to get up now. Come on, let's go. It's time to go. Did you take your meds? You need to get over here and take your meds. It's time to hop in the shower, those kind of things. So when we're told what we're supposed to do all day long, it can get frustrating. And we all, again, are humans and we want to have control over our own lives. And the folks we work with are no different. So sometimes when they feel that pressure all the time, they are going to respond with some challenging behavior. Okay, so let's get into Stephanie's plan more specifically. We've got four target behaviors that are identified: verbal aggression and physical aggression. So they're defined as verbal aggression is any instance where she's making statements that are hurtful in nature or threats of harm to others. She likes to joke around. So be mindful that if she's just joking around, she's in a good mood, she's smiling, laughing, but she's saying something that someone might take offense to, we're not considering that verbal aggression. Verbal aggression is when we're targeting if she's upset, she's angry, she's mad, she's had it, right? And that's when she's making those statements. Physical aggression, pretty cut and dry, pushing, hitting, kicking, pinching, hair pulling. And that happens typically when she's also showing signs of anger or frustration. Repetitive questions. Now, Stephanie is diagnosed with OCD, and so this is maybe just a symptom, a behavioral symptom of the OCD, right? So she's asking a question about the same topic after having already been provided with a response within a short time frame. And she might skip from person to person to see what answer she's going to get from each person. Okay. And then non-consensual physical contact. So Stephanie has a tendency to get a little touchy-feely with folks. She might be doing tickles without asking. I have been told that she is a fan of doing some butt smacks and some butt pokes. I'm not sure how often that happens in the home setting, but it seems like that historically happens more often in the day program setting. If she's asking for a hug, if she's asking for high fives or fist bumps, or those things that we tend to think of are more socially appropriate interactions, that's not considered non-consensual physical contact. It's just that coming up and invading someone else's personal space and touching them in ways without asking that are not socially, like under the social norms, typically. Okay. Okay, so we have to figure out the functions. Why is she doing this? Why is she doing these things? And then we also look at antecedents. So antecedent simply means what happens right before the challenging behavior occurs. Okay, so verbal aggression. We have determined that the function of this behavior is primarily attention, and it could also be escape. And it kind of just depends on the situation. So verbal aggression could happen, there could be multiple whys depending on the scenario. Okay. Oftentimes it occurs when she's told no, any form of no. You can't do that. It's not happening right now. That's a no. So that kind of also falls in line of denied access to preferred items and activities. Okay. Physical aggression, that typically is maintained by escape. So the why behind that is she's trying to get out of something, right, or get away from something. So when she's told no, that tends to be the trigger or the precursor. When she's denied access to preferred items or activities, or when staff attention is on others, or when denied attention. So if she gets really frustrated, she might engage in physical aggression. And then what happens after that is typically she's escaping from the situation where she was denied access or staff are then paying attention. Repetitive questions, those that is maintained by attention. So she repeats those questions and she gets that attention from folks. So people are engaging and answering the questions. Or maybe again, this is where I say like even bad attention is good for folks. So people might get frustrated and say, "We already talked about that. You just asked me that a few minutes ago." But if she's wanting attention, she's getting it however she can, right? So it might happen when she's aware that something is out of her typical routine. So she's wanting to know what's going on in her schedule. It might happen when staff are interacting with others and not her. Okay, so we're going to look at how can we have those needs met by her so that she doesn't feel like she has to use those repetitive questions. Then non-consensual physical contact. So again, that one's maintained by attention. So when she touches folks in that way, they're quickly stopping what they're doing and addressing what's happening. I don't like that. Please don't touch me. Don't do that. That's not okay. Those kind of things. So again, it's not the positive attention that she's getting typically, but she is getting a response and a reaction. So, and this happens typically when she's not currently receiving direct attention from another person or just when she's in close physical proximity to another person. Okay, so now we're going to look at what skills do we need to teach. So the skills we teach should match the function of the behavior. Teaching new skills helps to reduce the challenging behavior naturally. So for example, if the function is escape, we're going to teach that person how can you escape your stressful situation in a more socially appropriate manner than engaging in the challenging behavior. If the function's attention, we're going to teach that person how they can gain our attention without resorting to that challenging behavior. And this is just a little visual that kind of shows you what it ends up looking like. So first we have the triggering event, the antecedent, what happens right before the behavior occurs. What we're doing is Xing out that behavior and we're replacing it underneath with a new skill. The end result is the consequence. Now, kind of going back, we tend to think of consequence as a punitive, a punishment, but consequence simply just means, by definition, what happens after. So the behavior occurs, what happened next? Right? So that's how we figure out the why behind it, is looking at what happens after that behavior occurs. Right after that behavior occurs, what is typically occurring? So we're teaching a new skill so they can achieve the same consequence. If it's attention, we're going to teach a skill to gain that attention. If it's escape, we're going to teach a skill that helps them to get escape, even if it's momentary. Sometimes we have to do things that aren't our favorite thing to do, but we can at least ask for help or maybe say, can I do it a little bit later? So we're going to teach them a way, instead of engaging in that challenging behavior, to say, I need a minute, please. Okay, so just an example, if the thing that happens right before the target behavior, staff's paying attention to other folks. The behavior comes up behind and smacks staff on the butt. The consequence is staff starts to focus their attention on Stephanie immediately, giving her that feedback. Don't do that. I don't like that. Keep your hands to yourself. So if she's looking for this attention from us, what we want to try to teach, our replacement skill that we're teaching is, hey, hi, can we talk? Let's hang out. Or what are you doing? It could be any number of things, but we're teaching her to use her words rather than her actions, and specifically those actions that are invading our personal space. Another example, so the thing that happens right before the behavior is the staff are asking her to do something, presenting information that's not preferred. She doesn't like it. So she might get upset and yell. That's the behavior, is the yelling, right? The verbal aggression. In the consequence, what happens right after that? Staff might ask her to stop yelling. That's not nice. Or sometimes staff might get frustrated and just back off for a while. So instead of getting that end result of, again, getting that break or getting attention from staff, we're going to teach those replacement skills. Ask me. If you're frustrated with what I'm saying, say, can I get help? Say, can I take a break? Can I do that later? Or, hey, can we hang out? If I'm saying something that you don't want to hear or you don't want to do, and what I'd rather do is spend some quality time with you, then say, can we hang out first? Or can you help me with this? And let's hang out while we do it. Okay, so that's the skill that we want to teach. So prevention or antecedent strategies. Again, when we talked about the positive behavior supports, we are looking at what can we do to try to prevent these challenging behaviors from occurring in the first place. Prevention strategies are powerful. You want to put all your eggs in that basket if you can. Okay, so we're looking really at what can we do to change the environment? What skills can we teach so that Stephanie doesn't feel like she needs to engage in those target behaviors in order to have those needs and wants met? Okay, so we've got general strategies that we can use, and then we've got specific strategies that match that function or that why. So again, just a reminder, replacement behaviors take time and energy to teach. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. Again, there are no quick fixes. It takes a lot of practice, practicing new skills. Think about when you're learning something new and you're completely unfamiliar with it. If you only work at it once every week or once every couple of weeks, it's going to take you a long time before you really know what you're doing and you're fluent in that. Okay. We practice across different places, situations, people, and the other thing is we practice when we're calm. We don't practice learning new skills when we're frustrated or right after a challenging behavior has occurred because we're not in the right space for that right then. If you're frustrated, if you're sad, if you're upset, if you're heated, you're not hearing it. you're not in that mind space to learn new ways to go about doing things. So we want to use teaching moments that occur when we're all happy and relaxed. That's when we're open to learning new things. And then when we're teaching these new skills, we want to reinforce them. That means you did great. Positive praise, reinforcer programs. So we're praising that specific thing. If somebody did something that you want to see them do more in the future, tell them exactly what they did that was great. Don't just say, hey, great job. Say, I really like how you wash that dish. I've never seen a dish so clean in my life. You're amazing. Thank you so much for your help. Right? So we want to be specific with what it is that we are pointing out that's great. More on general prevention strategies. I talked about how we all want control over our lives, right? So, how can we do that? How can we share control when we have things that we know need to get accomplished? How do we share some of that control with the folks that we're working with? Choices are big. And when we offer choices, we can do two things. We can offer choice of task or activity, right? I need you to help me clean up. Would you like to sweep the floor or would you like to wash the dishes? I need you to take a shower. Would you like to take your shower now, or do you want to do it after your show is over? So give choices of time and choice of task. And when you give choice of time, don't use clock time, meaning don't say in 15 minutes or something like that. Use a concrete example, like I pointed out, after your show is over, before or after snack. So use those concrete times, avoid using clock time as I refer to it. And then also sharing control means picking your battles. Decide, is this the hill I want to die on? Is this really worth it? Is it okay if this person thinks that they're right? Do I need to be the one that's right in this? Do I need to have control over this situation? Or can I just say, okay, and then redirect to something neutral? Most of the time, I think you can say, okay, and then redirect to something neutral. Pick your battles. Okay. Another thing that we need to do is make sure that we are predictable, that routines, we use visual schedules, our approach is consistent. This can be challenging when working in group home settings because we're all different people and we all respond to things in a different way. So the way that I approach something might be a little bit different from the person that comes in on the next shift. And that's one of the reasons that we try to put these specific protocols in place so that we can have a consistent approach. And then also, we're reinforcing what we want to see. We want to avoid putting our focus on what we don't want to see. We don't want to spend too much time talking about or reacting to the challenging behavior. We want to spend more time finding the good. Okay. Even sometimes when it's just little things, like someone's just sitting quietly. Hey, you're having a great day. You're just so calm and cool and collected. I love it. So reinforce the things that you want to see. Spend your energy and your time on talking about the things that you like, the things that are great. Improving overall quality of the day. So when we're busy, when we're engaged, when we're doing things that we enjoy and we like to do, we're not going to have as many challenging behaviors. We're busy. We're loving life. Okay, so find out what the people you're working with. What does Stephanie like? Engage her in those things. And it doesn't have to be a time-consuming thing. Sometimes it's just, a quick activity, a quick conversation. Sometimes it's just a quick check-in to say, hey, I just wanted to check in and say, hi, you look great today. I love that outfit. Little things that are going to improve your relationship with folks, engaging in the things that they love, that they're interested in. Okay. And that kind of goes in line with improving our relationships or our rapport with individuals. Um, you are more likely to do the things that you don't really want to do or you're not a fan of if you've got a good relationship with the person who's asking you to do those things. That's our foundation. We really have to focus on getting that good, positive relationship with the folks that we're working with. If some stranger comes up and asks you to donate your time on some mission or volunteer activity on Saturday, You don't know this person. You have nothing with them, right? You're more than likely going to be like, sorry, I'm busy. But if your neighbor that you like, right, says, hey, there's this volunteer activity on Saturday. Are you available to come help out? You got a relationship with this person. You like that person. So you're more likely going to say, yeah, sure, I got a couple hours. I can come help out, right? So when we develop relationships with people, we are more likely to engage in those things that maybe aren't our ideal situation or our favorite thing to do. Okay, so these are the strategies that we've got in Stephanie's plan. So I already talked about catching the good, so providing specific verbal praise when she's engaging in positive social interactions. If she's expressing her frustrations, using functional communication that we're going to teach her, so asking for a break, saying she needs some help, walking away from a conflict instead of continuing to argue, just staying calm in situations that we know would typically result in her getting agitated. I give you some examples of some positive feedback that you can give her. Thanks for telling me you need a break. Take a few minutes and I'll come back and check in with you in a few minutes, okay? You did great on your activity today. I'm so proud of how you stayed focused and you were helpful on being specific with what it was that she did that was great. I appreciate that you told me you're mad. How can I help? Right? So when we're frustrated, when someone is frustrated, our priority needs to be in regulating that person, right? We need to help them get to a point where they are no longer escalated. So how can I help you? What does that person need from me to help regulate those emotions? Okay. And again, with the enriched environment, spend some one-on-one time with her, doing activities that she enjoys or talking about preferred topics. Encourage and lead group activities and get her engaged. Do cards, crafts, board games, movie nights, things that she likes. Try new things. Come up with new ideas. And I try to use, if I want to get people engaged in something that they haven't done before, I might, say like, oh, come on, no one plays this board game with me at my house. Let's just play for a couple minutes. I put it on me. So rather than like, hey, you want to play a board game? They might say, no. But if I make it sound fun and exciting and encourage them to do something and I've got a real good relationship with them, they might be more likely to play along and find out that they actually like what they're doing. When Stephanie expresses frustration with someone or something, spend some time just listening and providing empathy rather than giving corrective feedback or advice. So sometimes we just need somebody to say, hey, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened. It sounds like it was really frustrating. Again, we're caregivers and we want to come in and save the day and fix things, but sometimes people just need to be heard. So just keep that in mind. You might say like that sucks. Do you want my advice or do you want some help with that? I always ask. And then if they say yeah, then feel free to insert your opinions. Okay, so conversational topics practice. So here we're talking about some skills that we're going to be teaching. So at least once a week, I want you guys to review different conversation topics and present these in a role play fashion. You can do this one-on-one, or if it's in the day program setting, we've talked about how we can do this as a group activity. You can actually do it in the home as a group activity if everybody is in a good mood and getting along and stuff. And I'll give some examples of some conversation topics here in a second. We talked in the day program about giving a visual conversation board that could be referenced as something that could be an activity. So here's just some very generic, doesn't have to be this, but just some ideas. So when we're talking about conversational topics, and side note, we're doing this because we're going to assume that some of the behavior that she's engaging in to gain our attention is simply because she is not sure how else to go about gaining your attention. So this is why we're teaching her these things. If you want my attention, here are some things that you could say. Here are some things we could talk about. What do you like to do for fun? I can ask you that. You could then ask me that. What's your favorite TV show or your favorite movie? What'd you do yesterday? What was your favorite part of the day? What didn't you like about today? So we talk about, when we're doing this role play, we're going to say, we're going to ask each other some questions. What did you do yesterday? And then she might answer, and then you can tell her, okay, ask me what I did yesterday. Now, this isn't going to happen overnight. And with practice, I think that if this happens weekly, she will get used to this kind of game, this role play game of going back and forth. Initially, she's probably going to be like, "What are you guys doing?" But I think it's worth trying and consistently trying to do this for a couple of months to see if you can get her on board with helping with these expanding conversational topics. Functional communication. Functional communication really just means teaching people to communicate in a way that is um, calm, a way that expresses exactly what it is that they want or what they need, right? It's not engaging in those challenging or escalated behaviors. So if I'm frustrated, I'm going to say, I'm frustrated, not just scream my head off, right? Because that doesn't help you to understand what the heck's going on with me. If I'm just screaming and yelling, you have no idea what my problem is. But if I say I'm frustrated, that gives you a little clue. Okay, she's frustrated. Let's talk about it. So again, throughout the week, review things with her just in passing. When you're in a good mood, when she's calm and in a good mood, talk about, if you want me to hang out with you, if you want me to talk to you, what do you think are some things you could say? You could say, "Hey, Jen, excuse me," for example. If you're unsure about something, if you're upset, you could say, "Jen, I need some help. Can you help me?" If you're mad, you can say, "I'm mad." You could say, "I need a break." Okay, so we're teaching her phrases that she can use. And then the important part is when she does use those phrases, we want to honor it. If she says, "Hey, Jen, I need help," I need to offer her help. Okay, so when I'm teaching skills initially, every single time she says, "I need help," I have to stop what I'm doing and give her some help. Now, I know that feels like it might interrupt what you're doing in your day, unless it's something that you absolutely cannot tear yourself away from for more than a few moments. I get it. So maybe bathing someone is an example, or in the middle of administering some medications might be an example. But other than that, we can take a few moments without the world exploding. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but I promise you, you can take a few moments. We would want someone to do that for us, so we want to try to do that for the folks that we're working with. So when staff review these things with Stephanie, ask her to repeat the statement. So when I'm saying, "Hey, Jen, excuse me," okay, your turn, you say it. You say, "Jen, excuse me," right? So then when she says it, I'm going to role play out like, "Yeah, that's what you could say to get my attention. What do you want? What do you want to do?" So again, making it lighthearted and fun. Steph seems to have a pretty good sense of humor. And if you do it that way, I think that will have the best possible outcome. So I put down here again, honoring her request, brief social interactions when possible. If not possible, acknowledge that she's asked for your attention and say, "Hey, I'll be with you in just a minute, okay? I hear you." If she asks for help, make sure that you're offering empathy and a solution. I know, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. I get that it's frustrating. Let's get you set up with something over here, right? So we're gonna do something that you like. If she's mad, provide that empathy and a solution. "I'm sorry, that does sound awful. Let's take some breaths together and then do some breathing with her and redirect her to a preferred activity after that." Reinforcer program. So we do have a reinforcer program that we kept just in the day program for right now. We may or may not add one into the home setting. But this is specifically to target reducing the verbal aggression, the physical aggression, and the non-consensual physical contact. So we are promoting functional communication and positive social interactions, and it's separated into time periods. So instead of her having to go for multiple days or a full day in order to earn a token, we're breaking down those intervals into just hour lengths of time. The reason that we did that is because she was struggling with going a full day without engaging those target behaviors. If what we're asking people to do seems too difficult or is too difficult for them, they're not going to use those replacement skills. they're going to just default back to the learned behavior, which ends up being that challenging behavior. So when we start off working with folks, we want to try to make achieving those wants and needs with our new skills as easy as we possibly can. If I have to put too much effort into it, I'm just going to say, forget it. I'm just going to do it the old way, tried and true. Okay. And then over time, we can slowly start to build in tolerance to waiting longer to achieve those things that we want and need. But we start with making things as easy as we possibly can. Okay, so reactively, when the target behaviors occur, what do we do? So verbal aggression. If she engages in verbal aggression, we're going to stay calm and neutral, and we're going to make sure that our body language is super relaxed. And this can be hard because we don't even recognize sometimes when we're getting tense or what our face looks like. So try to just stay as calm, cool, and collected as you can. And the other thing is avoid providing corrective feedback. Corrective feedback is telling a person no, whatever form of no that might be. Stop. Don't do that. You can't do that. We talked about this. That's not nice. Those kind of things. That's corrective feedback. Again, remember, we are focusing on what we want to see, not what we don't want to see. So if she's engaging in verbal aggression, we are not going to specifically address the aggressive statements that have been made. Instead, we're going to prompt those things that we talked about teaching her. Seems like you're upset. How can I help? If you need a break, you can let me know. We can also try to redirect a person. So we can redirect her with like, hey, walk with me and we can talk more about what you're upset about. So if this tactic doesn't immediately result in de-escalation, uh, and other people are involved, redirect those other targeted individuals to a different area or activity. If you have the ability, if you're the targeted person, just give yourself some space. Say like, hey, I see that you're upset. I'm going to give you some time to cool off, and we can check back in a little while when you're feeling better. So if you're able to tag team with somebody, have the other staff person step in. But if you're the only staff on duty, sometimes we just need to give some space until that person is calm, cool, and collected again. And then when we do readdress that person, we're not going to bring up the past problem. We're going to keep it neutral. We're going to keep it at what's the task at hand. We're going to keep it positive. Okay. Physical aggression, again, our body language is relaxed, our tone is calm and neutral. We're not using corrective feedback. If we see any onset signs of escalated behavior, we are going to prompt those replacement skills. What is it that we want her to say? What is it that we want her to do? Um, it's kind of same thing that we talked about with the verbal aggression. When Stephanie follows through with showing signs of de-escalation, provide feedback and praise. Hey, thanks for letting me know that you were upset. I really want to help you, and it's easier for me to help when you let me know calmly how you're feeling. Repetitive questions. We're wanting to use some visual schedules so that she can see what's going on in her schedule, and then hopefully she can reference that instead of asking the repetitive questions. Now, this is something that is probably super ingrained, again, is a lifelong habit. I don't expect this to change quickly or easily at all. But if we're all consistent with our approach over time, the hope is that we do see it start to decrease some. Okay. And with that diagnosis of OCD, it's a difficult thing to try to adjust. So if she asks a question about her schedule that's already been addressed, staff are going to prompt her to take a look at her daily schedule and then help her with a review of that schedule. Let's take a look. Let's look at what you've got going on. If she asks again, I'm going to say, hey, check out your schedule. And then I'm going to go and busy myself with something else. And again, I'm staying calm, cool, and collected with this. I'm not getting frustrated. I'm neutral. I'm relaxed. That's super important. Okay. Um, you can say things like, you tell me if she asks you the same question, or you tell me what's going on. Let's look. You know where to find it. And then when she answers correctly, say, yeah, that's right. And then redirect to a different conversation, something that's neutral, something that's preferred. If she doesn't provide a correct response when you say something like, you tell me, don't leave her hanging. Tell her the correct response and then again, redirect. So by redirecting, we're trying to get the mindset off of what that person was kind of perseverating on. Okay, so non-consensual physical contact. If she's engaging in those interactions, you can provide a neutral but firm response. So it is absolutely okay to say, please don't touch me like that, or I do not like that. Please don't do it again. We're going to follow this immediately by offering an alternate form of physical contact. I like high fives. We can high five. We can fist bump. Do something funny. Do something that is just a secret handshake between the two of you. She would, I'm sure, get a kick out of that. And then after that, we're going to redirect again. Redirection is the best thing we can do, right? We're getting that train off of its, runaway track and we're heading somewhere else. Uh, you also will want to back up a little bit to give your personal bubble space between Stephanie and yourself, right? So I am going to stay calm and cool about it. I'm going to make sure that that time I let her know I don't like that. Now, something that is important to know is that what we say is what we mean. So if I respond by saying, I don't like that, please don't do it again, and then she does it again, and I don't respond, what she's going to learn is like, she said she didn't like it, but she didn't say anything that time when I did it. So we want to try to stay consistent with our feedback. And if you see her coming at you, don't wait until she engages in that non-consensual physical contact. Stick up your hand for the high five or that secret handshake. If you see her coming, then just say, "Hey, high five," right? So head her off at the pass. Okay, so a little bit about reinforcement. When we provide that positive feedback, that positive reinforcement, we're acknowledging the things that we want to see happen. When that happens immediately following the behavior that we want to see, it's going to increase that behavior that we want to see. When we accidentally provide the corrective feedback, when we provide that attention that is the frustration or whatever, that is going to increase the problem behavior. So whatever we do immediately following what the behavior is going to increase that specific behavior. I hope that makes sense. So whether it's the challenging behavior and we respond to it. If it's attention maintained, for example, and we give attention to the problem behavior, don't do that. Stop doing that. It's likely going to increase that challenging behavior that's going to happen again in the future. If we see something that's good and we acknowledge that, so we're acknowledging the positive behavior that we see, it's going to increase the positive behavior. So that's going to happen more often in the future. It's like watering plants, right? You don't want to water the weeds because the weeds are going to grow. You want to water the pretty flower and make the pretty flower grow. We want to also make the reinforcement better than what can be achieved through engaging in the challenging behavior. So if she's doing something and the result is attention, I want to give her the best attention in the whole wide world when she engages in a positive interaction with me. And I want to minimize the attention that she's getting if she's engaging in the challenging behavior. We're going to not ignore Stephanie. That's important too. We're not ignoring people. We're ignoring the challenging behavior itself. Okay. It's important that whatever we're doing, we do it immediately after that desired behavior occurs. There's about a 30-second window that is the sweet spot. So whatever we do within 30 seconds after a behavior occurs is what becomes attached to that behavior and what becomes reinforcing. And I've already talked about using the behavior specific praise. A little bit about extinction. So extinction is when we stop addressing the things that we don't want to see, right? When that previously reinforced behavior is no longer reinforced. So she's not getting a ton of attention for engaging in the challenging behavior. It's going to decrease that behavior from happening, but also you can expect that there might be an extinction burst, meaning those challenging behaviors might seem to get worse before they get better. And This is what makes teaching those skills and prompting those replacement skills super important because we can't just stop giving the escape. We can't stop giving the attention and expect that that's it. That's all we have to do. We have to teach those new skills. That person has to have that function met. They have to have those needs and wants met. Why are they doing it? We have to give them what they need. Again, we talked about it can be a little bit challenging to do this with teams of folks because we need consistency of implementation. If five people are working with Stephanie and four people are following exactly what the protocol is, and the fifth person is not, we're not likely going to see a significant change because we are creatures of habit and we also like to take advantage. If we see there's a loophole, we're going for it. If I can keep pushing things, if with this one person, I'm going to break down everybody else too. I'm going to try my hardest to do it. So consistency of implementation is super important. Safety is also super important, and I try to make plans that keep everyone as safe as possible. If for some reason you have concerns, my contact information is at the end, and we can work through anything. I'm available to try to help with stuff. Already talked about combining with other prevention. We're teaching and we're creating reinforcement strategies for those positive behaviors. So kind of already went over some of this. The plan sounds good, Jen, but it isn't working. What's the problem? The problem is it's not being followed. It's not consistently implemented. Or it's implemented, but we kind of fall off track and it's not maintained over time. So these are lifelong goals. Again, it's not a quick fix. We're going to need to work at these things, and over time, we'll start to see change. Okay, it's a process. There's no ending. Sorry, I know that there's no magic wand that says, like, just do this for a little bit and everything will be great. Data is important. Document things in your systems. When something happens that's one of the targeted behaviors, document about it so that I'm aware of the frequency and even the severity of things that are going on. Communicate your experiences, your questions, your concerns. I am open. I love your input. I want to work with you to help things to be as good as they can possibly be. I don't want to sit up on some pedestal just telling people, oh, do this, do that. This is a team effort. So the more we talk about what's going on, the better I am able to help. And at the end is my cell phone number and my email address, and you can reach out to me on both of those. I monitor changes to the environment, to the systems we're using, and people's circumstances change. So something that works right now might not work in the future because we're human and we change and things change. And so we might have to change things up down the road. We're always going to be reevaluating the plan to see what the best fit might be. But little side note, we have to try consistently for a solid period of time, like at least a consistent 2 weeks of everybody on the same page to see if we start to see some changes. Again, if just one person isn't following it, or we do it one time and we say, ah, this isn't working, that's not a time to give it. We gotta really make an effort. Okay, so this is my contact information, and thank you. I know that this was kind of a long presentation, so thanks for sticking in there and reach out to me anytime you want, and I'm happy to talk to folks. All right, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate your time.